Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Crew Call with Mike Rose with my erstwhile companion, Scotty Mason. This is Crew Call 5-9, which is, I guess, Crew Call has turned into a semi-annual event, and why not? That half a year went by literally in the blink of an eyelash and included how many grandchildren visits. I literally lost count. Karen and I were marveling at how we have this huge family now and four grandkids that are scattered all over the place. And when we started out, it was just her and I and our three kids, and then they multiplied. So that's what it is now, and that's what we do. Plus, I
That's
did a
that,
little bit of layout construction during that time, and maybe a little bit of the waning IT business as I kind of sort of fade into the IT sunset, if you will, as customers get older and died. So anyway, you're looking at me, you're looking at Scott, and we're going to talk about a pair of reciprocal visits that we did. Scott one day just kind of came down, made the trek to Dartmouth. I think he wanted to see what the heck I was doing in the Crestwood Industrial Park and finishing all of that off. So let's talk about that and then get that out of the way, and then we can talk about how I lured my buddy Dave out of his lair and we went up to Franklin to see your modules.
well, I mean, before we do that, I'd like to talk about, the last 5 minutes in which you made one excuse after another for why you haven't recorded a podcast. And the bottom line, Mike, is that you've let your listeners down.
I have,
And I think you owe them an
without a
apology.
doubt. I'm going to give them all their money back for the
You give
last
them
6
all their
months.
money back. And I think that, whether it's you or you and I need to make a concerted effort to put this thing out on a regular basis going forward because we owe that to the
We do. We also owe them better internet, I think.
um, yeah, so I was bored. I was tired of trying to interpret what you were doing in Crestwood. Um,
So it wasn't coming across in the posted picture.
no, it was, but it was head scratching because you were moving as usual at the speed of light, and I move at the speed of molasses.
Well, it's these sort of, spurts of frantic activity when I just get in the groove. And then
Yeah.
there's periods of inactivity where I just kind of look at things and go, I don't know.
I don't know when that ever was though for you, because as long as I've known you, you get a vision in your head and you're able to execute it, and it allows you to work very quickly. And this is a perfect example of that. I mean, you have built basically three very large structures in a fairly short amount of time. You've designed them, you've interpreted them from the prototype to a workable space within that Crestwood complex, and you've executed. You've built them. There's still obviously some details and some weathering and all that to tie it together, but the buildings are there.
It's presentable.
It's presentable and it's operational. And the last time I was at your house, which was maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, back in the early fall, I guess, right?
Yeah, there was not, well, the
Foster Wheeler
Robert
was there.
Woodson building was there.
Yeah. So I actually kind of went back and looked at that because I thought, geez, how long have I been working on this industrial park? And I just sent in my article to my column, for Model Railroad Hobbyist.
Mhm.
And I thought, gee, did I already do the art? I mean, I never know what I did last. You know what I mean? Like when I'm ready to do my column, it's like half a year apart, kind of like the podcast. And
Mhm.
I have to go back to the last one and say, okay, what did I do the last one on? And usually, uh, the last thing that I did the article on, um, there's been one other project, and subsequently that becomes the next column. Well,
Mhm.
this time I blew right through two different projects, and I like to write the column on the last thing that I did. So I did this column on the X-ray shed, which we'll, we'll get to that. But I thought, wow, I skipped right over Foster Wheeler and didn't do anything on Certainty. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I mean, I guess there's nothing timely about it. It doesn't have to be in a chronological order, but I was just surprised. It's not typical that I'll do three large structure projects like that in the space of a year. But I had a couple of things going on. There's an article going into RMC for the Conrail 50th anniversary issue, and I wanted to have the whole Conrail portion of the layout presentable. So after I did Foster Wheeler, which was like, I think I finished it up maybe last January, about a year ago. Um, and I don't remember when I started that, but that was kind of a very interesting project because of everything that went into and trying to model that, and also the research that went into that. I had very, very little to go by. And information is still coming in, believe it or not, a little late. But
Sure.
but uh I didn't really do anything, I don't think, until I started Certainty back in the early, I guess I did Certainty in the fall, not that long ago. And it was after I finished Certainty that I said, geez, I've got like a little over 2 square feet of layout left. What am I going to do? Leave that bare? It stuck out like a sore thumb. And I had to do a little plastics place there. And I just thought, how hard can that be? I'll just whip it up out of on-site ingredients. And that's what I did. Probably built that whole thing in about 2 weeks.
Well, you did, and I think you're selling yourself a little bit short here because it really wasn't three buildings when you think about it.
Well, Certainty
It
is
was
huge. Yeah.
well, but even beyond Crestwood, I mean, it started with the Roundhouse, which was not. Now I know this was a little longer than a year ago. It started with the Roundhouse, and then you went to the
That's true.
building that you posted the photo of today, which was an awesome photograph, by the way. And then you jumped right into Crestwood. So, if anything, it's been five fairly massive,
Yeah.
imposing buildings.
It's,
Uh,
when you have an 1,800 square foot layout, it's good that you don't start out thinking about how many buildings you have to build for it.
well, the scale in which you're building now is bigger.
Well, I've always felt that industrial facilities should dwarf the services for those buildings.
Well, I
Uh,
think what you've done, and I know you've still had to use some selective compression, but what you've done in 1,800 square feet is build a layout that has plausible industries on them that would be served by rail.
right.
And we've had this conversation before, right?
Even though they're all too small.
It's part of the compromise of being a model railroader and
Sure.
and putting a model railroad in a basement as opposed to an airplane hangar or outdoors,
Right.
right?
Right.
You can't build structures that are, for the most part, what you've done. You've made the most of that space. Your thought process has been different. A lot of people would have taken that Crestwood space and tried to fill it with as many small structures as they could,
Right.
and then make the argument that this 50-foot boxcar belongs on this siding next to this building that's actually smaller than the boxcar beside it.
That wouldn't work. That wouldn't
Um,
work. What I did was I looked at the traffic first of all, and I picked my three favorite from a standpoint of what would be interesting, both in terms of how many cars they would get, but also from what these places would look like, and because it's prototype modeling, which you know a little bit about, um, the I had the benefit of going there in person several times and taking lots of pictures. This is going to sound very redundant as we get more farther down the road here, because this is exactly what you
yeah,
you did.
yeah.
But you take lots of pictures, but more than that, you just kind of get a feel for the scale and scope, And my buddy Dave kept telling me that he didn't think these three things were going to fit in that room. And I kind of, had my doubts too, because it's only the 9 by 9 room, and you need to have an aisleway in there for people to go in there and work with it. So um, it's not like you could have, 9 by 9 as a like a one contiguous area and have aisles around it. It wasn't a freestanding thing. It used to be my oil tank room. So, and
It's it's
I
it's
wanted to make
interesting
it
that you
worth drilling through
sacrificed.
the foundation to get to also.
Well, it's interesting that you were willing to sacrifice heating your house for adding on to the model railroads.
Until you watch somebody cut an oil tank in half horizontally with a Sawzall, you haven't lived.
No,
That's what
they,
happened to the old ones.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
But after I did Foster Wheeler, which really got like the whole right-hand side there, I really wrestled with Certainteed because I had this image of that particular Certainteed plant. Um, and I couldn't make it work. I couldn't. I just, no matter what I did, nothing worked. And I ended up moving the turnout that fed that whole left-hand side. I ended up moving the track work around and also deciding that I wasn't going to build exactly that Certainteed plant. I was going to build a Certainteed plant and it had to look like it belonged in that spot. So I made sure it captured all of the things that I thought were cool about the main one. I guess the focal point would be that concrete silo
Mhm.
for it. And the logos and the color scheme and the loading docks and all of that. But aside from that, and the vent, which was a very, very interesting thing to try to build. I'm trying to think of the name of the vent now. Do you remember?
I don't
Uh,
remember. I think it was Steve.
no, it wasn't Steve. It was
Oh, I don't.
it was a somethington vent. And you see him on the top of glass plant
Yes.
steel mills and any
Yes.
industrial facility that has to get rid of a lot of heat without having to resort to like huge ventilators, powered ventilators. So it's designed to exhaust that heat and yet also not have it rain inside of the facility. So um, it's shaped very strangely. And I actually had a ball trying to figure out how to build it because it was so different from anything else that I had ever built. And it was only until I watched a video on the manufacturer's website where they kind of showed different angles of it
Mhm.
because I was looking at pictures from Google Maps and Google Earth, and I'm thinking, I haven't the faintest idea what's going on inside this thing. So the manufacturer's video on it showed me how it was constructed inside, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, of course, I got it now. I know what to do. But it was just
Now,
a really, really interesting thing to build.
we were talking about Certainteed, and you pointed out that it's not the building that was there, but it's a Certainteed based on a Certainteed mill.
Yep. It had to fit the spot. I had to bend it.
But and that's where I'm going with this. You said it didn't work until I bent one end of it,
Yep.
and you said, as soon as I did that, it all fell into place. At what point did you get the idea for that? Had you experimented with just, rectangles and realized it didn't work, or did you just end up with a vision in your head that I think this is what I need to do?
Anytime I build a large structure, I usually break it down into subcomponents. Um,
Mhm.
uh, Almost all the time. Foster Wheeler was built as one big thing because that's what it is. But like
Sure.
when I built Milazzo, which is 7 feet long, that was probably maybe five different subcomponents that ended up coming together because that's how the prototype was built also. And very
Mhm.
often that's how a lot of these industrial facilities are. They kind of grow out over time. But I think I was standing there one day, scratching my head, looking at it and going, "Hmm." And then I remembered what I had done in Tunkhannock, which was to take the Conrail track diagram, flip it and invert it. And I know you're thinking, that's prototype modeling. Well, I'm building it in a basement.
Sure.
You got to take a little bit of license, and that's all of a sudden that track arrangement fit that spot. It's got all of the prototype things that needed to be in there. And I thought this is a compromise worth making. So when I'm trying to figure out the proportions of a big industrial structure, I usually do mock-ups out of cardboard. And I had a lot of high quality cardboard here from the 7 different shipments of replacement windows that were shipped to me because they couldn't get the order right. They shipped me 7 different Harvey windows to replace a bad one in the sunroom. And every time they shipped me one, there was something that wasn't configured right. And I thought, how
Wow.
do you ever get an order right if you can't get one repeat build correct? I sent them pictures, everything. But anyway, I ended up with a lot of very high quality cardboard,
I bet
and
you did.
and I saved all the good stuff. And believe it or not, when I'm doing a mock-up, I actually cut the cardboard on my table saw. And you're probably thinking, what? But the reason I do that is I get very precise cuts, nice
Mhm.
clean cuts and very precise, repeatable measurements, so you can cut all the sides and you can all of that. So, a mock-up that just looks like, an Amazon box you turned upside down isn't going to cut it. You're actually trying to get something that pretty closely resembles, and if I look at it, it's a little bit too big. I can just cut the tape, take it back to the saw, and slice off half an inch or whatever. And that's how I've been doing it lately. And that seems to work well for me. And once I had decided that I was going to conform the building to the site rather than the reverse, then the process got a lot easier because now you're using your selective compression and your modeler's eye, and you're trying to design something that looks like it belongs there, right?
Sure.
And on model railroads, the bench work usually, especially for something you're going to switch at, it's not usually more than a couple feet deep. So by definition, it's going to be shallow. So the trick is to get it to be shallow without looking skinny, if that makes sense. And usually when you stretch out the structure over lineal feet, it kind of takes away from that shallow look, and you're basically looking at just the mass of it, just going on, which is how these buildings hit you when you're standing there looking at it. You're not Paul Bunyan looking down at it from a drone
Exactly.
at how shallow it is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the idea is to focus the attention on things that kind of take your mind off of it. So that's why I focused on highly detailing that concrete silo, and also doing some really cool looking vent work and what have you, that, the air, uh, cyclones and things on top of that building. That's what you're looking at. You're not really standing there thinking, it's a little thin.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is probably a foot deep, maybe. I'm, off the top of my head. It doesn't hit
Well,
me that way.
you know, not that there wasn't already enough operational opportunities on that layout, but you've created a whole new job as
Well,
part of the operation scenario.
I actually took a job that uh, was too short because that wasn't built yet. But that
Hmm.
that that job uh, would leave Pittston Yard. It would do intercities cold storage, and then continue on
Yep.
to Crestwood, and then on the way back it would do 84 lumber, the other side of the tracks from a trailing
Yep.
point standpoint. So now that job, basically you come to an obsession, that's what you're doing. You know what I
Yep.
mean? You're going to be, that'll take you pretty, and it's a good long run that way because Crestwood is, halfway around the basement. So now that's a premier job, and I think, there are people who are going to want to work that all the time. So now I'm happy with it, right? Because, when you think about it, my line had a mainline freight that arrived at Pittston around noon, and another mainline freight the other direction that would arrive about around midnight, 12 hours apart, opposite
Yep.
directions. And
Yep.
that was it. All the other mainline trains on that line in 1984 were D&H trains,
Yeah.
but there were a ton of locals. There were like 6 or 7 different locals. So the idea was, if you're going to have that many locals, they've got to do something. And you've done several different locals, right? On the layout. I mean,
Yeah.
you did
Yep.
Towanda. I don't know what else you've done. Did you ever do like the Laceyville?
Yep.
So you did
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So
Yep. I've
there's
done
there's plenty of
Charming.
places to go and plenty of things to do, and that's what keeps a layout, I think, interesting to run,
Sure.
on into the future.
Um, for me, uh, because I don't have a layout, I don't operate on a regular basis.
It's like
And
riding a bike, though.
it is like riding a bike. However, you keep building a more complex model railroad. So just, and you're really the only place that I operate anymore. So every time I come over there, there's a little bit of a relearning that needs to take place. I haven't yet gotten used to operating your layout.
Well, the Conrail portion now is basically done.
Sure.
There's a little teeny bit of it that actually I refer to it as scenic staging. That'll be in the model shop. That's way down the road. Um, and I've got a lot of Pocono Northeast. The branch line there to build, which I'll probably start that in February, and I'll start doing some things there. I'm not really sure if that will go fast or not, but everything that I'm building there is relatively small, and that bench work is very shallow. And I
Mhm.
think I think that till I get to the bump in, at the thing I bumped into the workshop, till I get
Yep.
there, I mean, that's a scene that is going to be, I think, a highly detailed scene. But I could probably spend 2026 on the Pocono Northeast.
Sure. It's interesting, and we've talked about the evolution of the hobby a little bit, but um, we've gone from a time where I'll call it scenic model railroading, where you were watching trains run. Um, command control came out, and you could watch multiple trains run at the same
Right,
time.
right.
You chased each other's cabooses around the layout, and it was,
Well, like
all
John Allen's work in the early days, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. To now, this interactive approach to the hobby where, multiple people are interacting with the model railroad.
right.
They're creating, and it's so much more complex, right? You've gone beyond building a model railroad. You've built a model railroad that operates like a real railroad in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it is highly integrated. It's a big system.
Yeah.
I think I've spoken in the past about how when I did the all the interstitial work that was required when the addition came in, and Pittston got moved out into the addition, and I had to create all that stuff in between. And really, it wasn't until the first op session with the new setup that for sure that your vision or your plan actually works, and is it going to be fun, and does it have legs, or have you built a giant diorama? You know what I mean? So there's all these concerns that you have in the back of your mind, but I thought it was going to be okay, and it turned out it is fun. It's actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be, because even though it's sort of the same jobs roughly all the time, somehow they're never the same. And the changes happen organically without a lot of interaction on my part.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a magic trick. I'm not 100% sure how that even works, to be honest with you, but it does work that way. So I don't think I have boredom concerns. My wife was worried that when I ran out of things to build, that we'd have to put on another edition, but I don't think so. I think I'm
But
good.
I think, you transfer that energy to more operating sessions.
Right, right. And there's
Uh,
plenty of detailing you can do to a layer. You never run out of things to do on a model railroad, especially a big one.
well, I think, a lot of the broad brush, on your layout is done.
Except for the Pocono Northeast there, that's just bare
Yep.
decking.
Yep.
But yeah, I wanted to get it all to the presentable stage. For a while there, when we would operate, you'd be going along through nice scenery, and you'd be like into what you're doing, and then you'd hit a bare spot, and it would just take you right out of it. At least it did for me. And that was motivation to get rid of those bare spots, and get it all to a good, acceptable level, and the way it is now, I'll walk around, and sometimes I'll see something, like I'll see Actually, I notice it mostly in pictures. I'll take a picture and look at it and think, whoa, that building doesn't look planted. It still looks like it's just sitting on the ground. And then I'll go back and plant it. You know what I mean? Like little things like that stand out to me. I was looking at my supposedly finished scene at DuPont, and I saw this big space, and I thought, whoa, I meant to stick some shrubbery in there, and I never got back to it, and of course then I took care of that. So there's a million things like that to do when you're talking about 1,800 square feet of layout. You never run out of stuff to do.
And the other thing I want to kind of point out is how unique, um, not only is your model railroad, but are you as a model railroader. Um, you fall into that less than 1%, in my opinion, of the people who are good looking bald people like me now, that that can execute throughout the various disciplines of the hobby, right?
That's what I
You
love about the hobby. It has so many
oh,
itches that I can scratch.
but right now there are a handful of people that I'm aware of in the hobby that can do that. And you and Mike Confalone are the two people that I know the best. There are a few others. Um, and I think that that's a rare. It is a rarity. There's no question about that. You've mastered all the disciplines required to build
Only took me half a century.
paths. Well, it's not an overnight thing,
Right.
um, for anybody, right? But you've mastered all those disciplines that make a world-class model railroad, and I find it ironic when I pick up, any of the remaining publications that exist, and their job is to sell magazines, right? And so they're going to promote whatever they're putting in there. They're going to promote it as being, this end all thing. And
Plus, they're also appealing to a wide range of,
of
of
course,
modelers and skill levels and what have you. And that's a good thing.
but they also let things slide too. So, for instance, Calmback's Great Model Railroads annual. Um, this year, I happened to pick it up in Barnes and Noble and thumb through it.
I haven't seen it.
I ended up not purchasing it, and I usually do. There's usually a couple of model railroads in there that are worthwhile, but there was a particular. I'll remain anonymous with who and the details, but there was a model railroad in there that is visually beautiful. It doesn't run.
What do you mean?
It does not run.
It's a diorama?
It is a giant diorama.
Wow. And you know what?
Uh,
If that's what you want to build, great.
well, it wasn't done so intentionally.
How do you know it doesn't run? It says that.
Um, I have personal proof that there may be a small section here and there that runs roughly, but
Yeah.
basically, it turns out, um,
Hmm.
and this is what I would classify as an uncommon mistake. If you bury your rails in dirt or ballast, and your flanges are riding on the dirt or the ballast, that's a problem.
It could be operationally difficult.
That's
Yeah.
a big problem.
Yeah. Huh.
So, I looked at it and I thought, all right, it's one dimensional. It's aesthetically very pleasing, but it's really just a diorama.
Yeah, I just figured if you're going to put all that work into building a model railroad, you need to do something with it when you
Now,
get to this point. It's
honestly,
interesting.
honestly, that if that's what this person wants to do, that's fine. And I'll use another example, and I will name names in this case, but George Selios. If you look at his model railroad, um, it's overwhelming. The detail is incredible. It's almost an overload for the senses. For a long time, it didn't run,
Hmm.
but
He was too busy building buildings.
he was he. We all have just expertise in different disciplines. He was not an electronics person,
Mm.
but he brought in the right people who got the layout running for him, and now it runs beautifully.
Hmm.
So he knew he needed that dimension to it to make it everything that that makes a fantastic model railroad other than, just visually.
Right, right.
Uh, so, um, you've done that. Uh,
Gotta run.
this this model railroad operates as good as it looks, and it looks beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
it looks like, and we talked about this. Now I know I'm kissing your bum severely since we started recording, but I mean this sincerely because I think there are fewer and fewer examples of this in the hobby. Um,
I see a lot of great modeling out there. I mean, I do.
but do you see it applied to an overall canvas where you've got beautiful structures, beautiful track work, beautiful rolling stock and locomotives, and it operates fantastically. Because to me, that's
They're out there. I don't know that they're a dime a dozen. Uh,
no,
and I'm probably personal friends with a lot of them because
sure,
the birds of a feather kind of a deal.
yeah.
Um, I bet you everything Lance Mindheim ever built is like that.
Well, Lance, I would definitely put Lance in that category.
Right.
Lance is wonderful. Um,
Well,
I
you're
would
right. I
put
mean, there's a very wide range, and I always tell people, get inspired by anything you want to get inspired by, but
Mhm.
it's supposed to be fun. You should enjoy this. It's a hobby, right? Find something you like about it and rock with it because there are not many hobbies that are this diverse.
Yeah,
And I think that everybody has their own ambitions, and I don't think you necessarily know what those are when you first start out. You don't know what you don't know. Uh,
exactly.
and I made every mistake possible. I just didn't repeat mistakes. I learned from mistakes. And, I would say I threw away my entire efforts for the first 10 years. Just literally dumpster. The only thing I kept was the bench work. So there's a willingness to get it right, and you have to have that. And um, I guess I was young enough when I did that it didn't seem impossible.
I think the common denominator is, hi, my name's Scott. I like trains, and then you take it from there, right? That
Yeah.
everyone likes trains.
Yep.
And then what becomes of that is another story altogether.
Oh, I guess. I mean, I think I'm a builder at heart. I mean, as a little kid, I was building, model submarines and airplanes and battleships and what have you, trying to scratch that itch. And the thing
Yeah.
about those is, you build them and then, there they are. You can hang a plane from your ceiling with string, or
Hmm.
the submarine sits on top of your bureau, but it's the building of it that's kind of the point. And then once you've built it, okay, it's there on display. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things about a model railroad that are like that, but what's not typical of most hobbies is that once you've built it, you can use it and do something with it that's interesting.
Exactly.
I mean, you could do that with I don't know, like model airplanes, the ones that fly.
Mhm.
A buddy of mine described it as the most heartbreaking hobby you could ever have because you put all that time and effort into building this great thing, then it crashes sometimes, and you just gotta like start over on it.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, unless you're extremely careless in our hobby, that should never ever happen.
No, no. Well, we've all had an engine or two hit the floor, but I don't want to bring up my memories of the time the layout was on and the gate was open, which has
Mm.
never happened since.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I think it's one of those things that it will only happen once.
no, you never forget that plastic on concrete sound. It's
Oh,
a sound that
that's sickening.
like a car accident
Yeah.
sound. You know what I mean? You never forget that sound either, that metal on metal sound. And
Yeah.
this plastic on concrete sound is a very bad sound.
What's worse than the sound of the crash is the sound of the silence in between the time that leaves the tracks and hits the floor.
Well,
You
I
know,
think I
the
think I
space
tell you
at
about
the
the time where I heard the sound and I thought, what the heck was that? And then I didn't hear anything. And then I heard it again and I thought, oh no. And by the time I got to that spot, I literally caught the third engine in midair in my hands. So, um,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
fun times.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, I loved what I saw. I was so happy to be able to get down there. I was so happy to be able to see in person, what you've photographed and posted on social media. And it's always the case, right? The pictures are great, but the
Yep.
pictures don't do it justice.
There's no
And
there's no substitute for the site visit, which is why
no,
I decided to come up to how's this for a segue? I decided to jump in the vehicle and leave the compound and head on up to your area of the woods,
yeah, that
uh,
was a brave move on your part.
Franklin, Mass. You don't see me doing that much because
No,
I'm usually here hammering away. But I said to Dave, "All right, it's January. We got to get out of the house." And hauled Dave up there to see what you had done with your modules, and we've talked about them on other shows,
mm,
um, in part because it seems like you build a big one every year,
mm.
for the past 3 years, right? Those are 3 years worth of modules, correct?
There are, well, the last one was a year and a half process.
Okay,
So there was actually
and I could see
last year.
why.
Yeah, last year we did not have an exhibit.
Oh, okay. Down for maybe I glossed over that. So all right. So we're talking about maybe a 4 year span.
It's, yeah, 3.5 years since I
Okay.
started
For
the
these three
process.
modules.
Yeah,
So and get ready, folks. You're gonna see some pictures of them that I took while I was up there. It's not gonna be just two bald heads the entire show here, but
which
I
is a
have to
damn
I have
shame,
to
by the way.
I have to preface it by saying that we showed up at Scott's house and we piled into his SUV, and then he proceeded to take us on a route that I wish I had left breadcrumbs to get back to his house, or maybe he didn't want me to go back to his house again because he took me this convoluted route to get to this place, and it was
I
in actually a very nice little town building, and we walk in there, and I've seen loads of pictures of these, right, for years.
Yeah.
And yet, when you see it in person, it's very different. Very different impression in person because unlike most model railroads, you walk around it so you can see it. It's designed and built to be viewed from all angles. I
Mhm.
thought the lighting was pretty good, actually. Uh,
It's pretty good museum lighting.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I
And
wouldn't I wouldn't want it in my basement if I were building a model railroad.
no, no, no. But for what you're showing off there, I thought this looks very professionally done.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at the modules, and it becomes clear that this is the work of a madman. This is this is this goes beyond. This is not certainteed. This is prototype modeling down to the millimeter. And I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit as we look at the individual things, but I'll
Sure.
preface it by saying that, Scott was modeling a particular area of the town of Franklin at a particular time. Was it the 30s or something?
1932.
32. And he was basically trying to recreate what was interesting to him that included some railroad related constant industries, I guess you would call them, but also the surrounding portions of the town, which is what it would make it interesting to the townspeople.
Mhm.
Um, and everything is basically scratch built. It's not like he's kit bashing Walther's kits. Uh,
No.
it's all scratch built because it's all based on if the building was still standing, he's out there with a tape measure and a camera and preserving this piece of history. And when you see the pictures, you're going to see amazing detailing and probably a task that I don't know. Did you have a sense of what the scope of this task was when you started it?
Um,
What it would be?
not specifically.
Did
I
you
knew,
plan on all of these modules? I mean, what was
yeah, I actually, when this idea was presented to me by another one of the historical commissioners for the town, of which I'm one, um, I my thought was I need to put together some type of proposal that lays out uh, for the historical commission what my thoughts are on this project and what the breadth of it might be. Because there are, Franklin, like a lot of towns in Massachusetts, was built on its industry. And there were a number of fairly large industries in town, all of which, were built in the latter part of the 1800s, and many of which are still standing.
Industrial Revolution time.
So, they have automatic architectural interest built into them. You
Right.
don't have to extrapolate anything. So I wasn't looking at them with the idea that, well, these are boring. I'm going to press myself to build these. Uh, it was an easy lift to say, I want to do this.
Yep.
The hard part was, how do I do it? And
And
how
you're a
do I do
builder at heart anyway. So, I mean, you had your own structure building company. You
it?
custom built model railroads with Dave Frary and Bob Hayden. I mean, you've got a very long uh, background in building structures and model railroads. I mean, you did the Craftsman Structure Show for how many years? I mean, that was another, built. So you had a big itch that you wanted to scratch too. You missed it.
Yeah, so and the difference is that if you're building a structure and it's not based on anything that anybody's got to look at and hold your feet to the fire, you can take some liberties. There were no liberties that could be taken with these dioramas. The
Right.
the um, the fidelity to the prototypes had to be as exact as I could possibly make them,
Which is why they
given
had to be
given the
scratch built.
information. Yeah, given the information. Yeah.
Yep. Well, how about we look at some pictures and
Go
you
ahead.
you can start talking about uh we can start talking about some of the various elements that stood out to me in the pictures. They're in the order that I took the pictures, so they're
Mhm.
not going to be in any other logical order. I
That's
made at least three passes around all of them, and every time I passed around, I saw something else that I found interesting. So we'll bounce around a little bit. So let me just
sure.
share my screen here and pick this one. And hopefully now everyone is seeing the module with the big name Franklin on it. And this was the first picture that I took. So the large structure that we see in the center, Scott, is some kind of coaling facility, correct?
You are not sharing, Mike, actually.
I'm not.
No,
Oh, I
sorry.
have to hit the I have to hit the share button. There you
Yeah.
go. How about that?
Yep. So this was the first module I did, and interestingly enough, when I was uh, uh, appointed to the historical commission in town, I was attending my first monthly meeting, and the guy sitting beside me, when the topic of new exhibits came up, started elbowing me in the ribs. And he said, "Hey," he says, "You're that train guy." And I wasn't exactly sure where this was going, but I knew it
Yeah,
meant
it
that,
sounded like trouble.
I was going to need to stock up on canopy glue. And he said, "I've had this idea for this exhibit." And he said, "I can't do it." He said, "But I bet you can." So he was, laying the path of breadcrumbs in front of me to the pot of gold. So we talked about it, and we decided that we would start with this first diorama, which depicts the area in the center of Franklin, and it's the railroad station that was built by the New York, New Haven, and Hartford in 1928 and still stands. The other structures that are part of this diorama have all been demolished. Some have been gone for over 60 years.
So this was all built from photos in this
It
case.
was all built from photos, with the exception of the station, which I did photograph and measure. But then after I had captured all of that information, my good friend Ron Ricci, who is he's sleuthy, and he's a member of the New Haven Historical Society, found the builder's plans for the station.
Hmm.
So we were able to, my buddy Sam, who has really been the project engineer for all three of these dioramas, imported it into his CAD program, scaled it, and traced out all the walls, windows, and door openings. So we were able to build
This is no small
exact.
task.
No, No, and something that I would have been unable to do by myself.
He's
I don't
really
have.
good, isn't he?
Oh, he's amazing, and honestly, Mike, I can't hit this ball hard enough. Without his contributions to these three dioramas and
Wouldn't have happened.
subsequent projects that we'll be doing together, they wouldn't exist
Yep. Yep.
because there are just things that he's really, really good at that I have no ability to do whatsoever. So the station is an exact replica. The other buildings are based on photographs, and then using whatever intellectual capital I can muster to translate information from photographs. And we're very lucky that we have lots and lots of photographs at the
Yeah.
museum of these areas, into scale models. But bottom line was I only had 3 months to build this before they wanted to put it on exhibit.
That's ridiculous.
So that was that was
This doesn't look like 3 months. I remember you were going crazy doing this. Talk about me.
literally I was gluing pigeons to roofs at 11 o'clock the night before
Oh, jeez.
transported to the museum. So yeah, it was a sprint from start to finish, and there are actually areas that I had to truncate because I just didn't have time to add uh, structures in that I would have wanted to. And now, when the exhibit ends on February 2nd, I'm going to have this diorama brought back to my house. I'm
Really?
gonna, yeah, I'm going to take all the fascia board off of it. I'm going to enlarge it so that it's 54 inches wide and it's a rectangle. So it's kind of a
Well,
free form. I don't know
yeah, I
if you
was
can.
going to ask you, like, how did you arrive at this shape? Because it's very unlike the other modules.
So it is, and the shape was dictated by how much time I had to work on this. Uh, and
So this is 3 months of shape. I got it.
yeah, that's what 3 months looks
Okay.
like. Give me 6 months and you've got a different shape.
So
Uh,
when I look at this module from from the modeler standpoint, I think, okay, everything looks right to me. The dirt looks right. The patches on the roof of that center structure there, the plenty of detailing without being overly detailed, the variety of foliage, the color scheme, the weathering, it just looks right to me. Paving looks right. Like everything looks right.
yeah, thank you. So yeah, it should, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I would say that the museum lighting also has an effect on that. Thankfully, um, I think it had a positive effect. But all of the dirt that you see, all the ground covering that is natural, all of the coal that I used in the dioramas actually comes from those specific areas on the prototype,
Hmm.
which is kind of a neat little anecdote to pass along to people
That's
who
not
are.
easy to do
It's not.
most
It's
most of
not
the
easy.
time.
It actually, in this case, it really was. Thankfully, or not so much, depending upon which side of the environment you fall on. The railroad has never been a great neighbor in terms of cleaning up after itself.
Right. So a
So
lot of
this
remnants.
this coal company that you see in front of you had a siding that went to it, and in about 1960, 62, somewhere around there, when Mike was in his 20s, um, they ripped it up. They tore the coal company down and they ripped up the siding, and they threw all the ties, all the spikes, all the tie plates, all the junk just into the embankment in front of this facility. And then they built a municipal parking lot where those three buildings are right now.
Okay. So
So,
let me pause you for just one sec because I'm looking at the building and I'm looking at how it is up on stilts,
mhm,
but it's not that high. So
yep.
so why is it like that? Like how did
So
this thing
it's
work?
probably a little bit of an optical illusion. There is more than enough space to drive trucks underneath there. So
Okay.
basically,
Say
what
no
would
more.
happen?
I understand.
Yeah. So hoppers would empty the coal into a space between the ties.
Yep.
It would go on a conveyor. It would be sorted at the top of that building,
So
and
there
then
would be like an elevator inside the building.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So
And the portion on top probably has a horizontal conveyor of some kind.
it does, yeah. So the coal went up and was sorted by size,
Yeah,
and it was dispensed into dump trucks underneath, and those dump trucks delivered the coal to your house and emptied them into a coal chute into your basement. And that's how you heated your house for a
yep.
lot of people in New England, heated with coal until the 60s.
And did you find pictures that showed those patches on the roof of that building?
No, I didn't. And so
It's one of my
as
favorite parts.
I know, me too. So where the artistic license comes in is um, you've got to build a little bit of character into some of the more mundane areas. So a lot of the structures that we see commercially made for the hobby have all of this roof detail on them.
Yep,
And a lot of it is overkill. It just, the prototype wouldn't have, 10 vents and six chimneys and, all this stuff going on the top of it.
right.
And that was the case with these buildings. There were vents and chimneys, but they were pretty much, just pitched surfaces. And in order to break that up a little bit, I wanted to depict, some areas of that rolled roofing that had been replaced over time.
Gotcha. Well, we've got 40 pictures to look at, so I'm going to move
Well,
on.
please, yeah.
Going to move on to the next one here.
Yep.
So, again, I'm taking all of these with my phone, so you're not going to get depth of field that's going to do this justice. But I had to take a few uh, sort of ground level shots. This is that same coaling facility as if you were standing there down looking at the station. And,
Mhm.
and I love how, in the upper center there, that reddish structure. I like the difference in height and how the tracks are sort of in this um, depressed kind of area. And is that to allow the grade crossing down at the far end to be an elevated bridge crossing it? Like, was that manually done, or is this just the terrain?
No, that was the terrain, and Mother Nature is the best scenic master I've ever seen. So all I had to do was go out there and measure the height of that embankment, uh, and I was off and running. And
Yep.
there were a ton of pictures of that red building. That was actually a piano factory at one point,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then it became a warehouse for furniture. But the two tracks you see on the left are the Midland New Haven's Midland Division main line. That siding on the right is that coal siding I was telling you about. And that small building in the dead center of the picture is a Railroad Express Agency
Okay.
office.
Yeah, I
That
can see the sign on the side of the truck.
Yeah, and I can vividly remember in 1977 when they tore that building down. I happened to be down at the station that day, or a day while they were tearing it down, and I remember thinking as they were taking the slate shingles off the roof and just letting them slide down the roof onto the ground, that if anyone ever got hit by one of those things, it'd be all over.
Oh, take your head clean off.
Yep, yep,
This is more of a drone view.
yep.
Is that real rock or is that a casting?
No, those are castings and some carving. I used real rock where I could, but that's hydric
That's
hell.
plaster.
Yeah.
Beautifully colored. Looks just right.
Well, and I spent a heck of a lot of time. That rock face is there. And I tried to copy it as best I could. I'm not the best carver of plaster. So I did rely on some castings and carved the spaces in between.
Yeah.
But the coloring is pretty dead on to the prototype.
Now, is that done with oils?
That is done with acrylic washes.
Wow. Yep. Very nice. Very nice. We're on another module.
Yeah, this is the second diorama that I built, and this is a building that was torn down in 2018, but actually still exists on Google Earth.
That's pretty cool. I I have used the historical images portions of Google Earth many, many times. I'm taking this kind of a photo angle to kind of not get the rest of the museum in the background as much as possible. The
Sure.
the advantage of the freestanding module is you can walk all around it and see all the detail from every angle,
Mhm.
as you must have when you were building it. But the disadvantage from photography is there's nothing to block out the background.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly. And this
This building's a
building,
perfect example of how, if you were going to try to scratch build this without using laser cutting techniques, it would have taken you a year.
there's no way. I mean, uh, it's funny how much wood we have sacrificed to the gods as a part of this laser cutting process, and you'll see that, when you start popping up pictures of the third diorama. But this building at the time was one of the largest structures I had ever built. It's got over 300 windows in it.
Now, are those
And
Tichy windows, or did you
those
build
are
these
Tichy
too?
windows.
Okay.
And when I actually went to the Springfield show, as you and I will be doing next Saturday, of course, and I know we're not doing that. And
I would have to be
I
shanghaied.
I know. I picked up the windows from the Tichy booth, and Don looked at me as I'm holding, this armful of windows, and he said, "Are you manufacturing kits again?" And I said,
Right.
"No, Don, this is for one building." And he just kind of shrugged and turned away. But um,
Natural light was important when that was built, I think.
well, exactly. And this building, this is as you see it now, this building had been added on to three times from its original structure, which was really just that long center structure that you see. The piece that juts off to the right, and then the wing that juts off to the left were added later.
Yep.
And that's how it looked in 1932. And we actually have a photograph from 1932 that shows it in that state. But then again, over the subsequent years, more was added in, including that kind of pie-shaped piece between the wing on the left and the main building. So it grew and grew, and when I did before I started working on this diorama, I said to our local de facto historian, his name is Joe Landry, and again, someone who's been essential to this process for me. I asked him if he had any pictures of this mill that had been torn down at that point. And he kind of hemmed and hawed, and he said, "Well, give me a half an hour and I'll see what I can dig up." And a half an hour later, he started emailing me files. And he
Wow.
had over 200 photographs of this mill.
And he had to probably scan them and send them to you.
No, he had them. He was pulling my leg a little bit. He knew he had them. He just
Oh,
wanted to see my reaction when he started flooding me with them. But he was just, wonderful in providing, all of the documentation that I needed to build this thing accurately.
I like the window that's partially open here, right in the center.
Yeah, and honest to God, Don Tichy, his window offerings are fantastic.
Oh yeah.
That main window is a 6/6 mill window, and it just happens to be the exact dimensions of the windows that were in that building.
Well, you might remember the Ransom building that we worked
Sure.
together on in the beginning, and those are all Tichy windows in there.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So here's the other side, and you can see
Yeah, there's the
fire
backside.
escapes over onto the right. So what is this little building right in the crotch of it there?
Yeah, that's the little building in the crotch. I have
You don't
no.
know why it's there. It's just
Yeah, so these mills, and again, the pictures from the third diagram kind of really show the example blatantly. But they added on to them on an ad hoc basis over many many years. If they needed space for something, there were no building codes in those days. There were no building
right.
inspectors.
It's
They just
probably an office. The plant manager probably needed an office, and they built one.
Yeah, I mean, it also could have to do with, shipping and receiving too. You got the two loading docks there, and it could be a place for truckers to check in and out of as well.
Right. Now the loading dock, the concrete loading dock
Mhm.
looks really good. Is that plaster also?
Yeah, that's a piece of hydrocal. I built the forms for it and cast it based on the dimensions of the actual loading dock.
Looks really good. The right color,
Uh,
it's got the form lines, it's all good.
Yeah, I wanted to, honest to God, coloring concrete that existed in this area is a little difficult because I think, the commercial paints that are available that say, concrete on the side of the bottle don't look like any concrete I've ever
No,
seen around
no,
here.
no.
So
Now
that
we're
was
on another module here, correct?
no, this is the same
Oh,
module. This
same
is just
module.
on the
Okay.
other side of the tracks. Yeah.
It's a lot of interior bracing on this. And I don't
Um,
mean just the web, I mean on the walls.
yeah. So there's stud wall. Now the reality of this building is, and I know a lot about locomotive roundhouses. I just do. Um,
Well, that's why I
and
consulted with you on mine because I knew nothing about them.
I built many, many, many locomotive roundhouses. Every locomotive roundhouse that I've ever seen is either wood, brick, or stone. Occasionally, you find a stucco roundhouse. Yours would be an example.
Hmm.
This locomotive roundhouse was built in 1888, and it was tin clad, 4x6 tin panels nailed directly to studs.
Boy.
Now, I couldn't model that real well and keep any kind of structural integrity to those walls. Um,
So the studs are out of scale.
so the studs, actually the studs are to scale. The studs are
Really?
on 2 foot centers, which for the time would have been accurate.
Huh.
But there is sheathing, wood sheathing in between the panels and the studs, and that was the only way I could brace it well enough to keep it from warping all to hell.
Yep. Yep. You-
I also built a small machine shop in there, knowing full well that in that bump out, there probably wasn't a machine shop. It was probably just used as a stores house. Uh, but that's boring. And I wanted to, take the roof off of it and let people be able to see what the inside of a locomotive roundhouse might look like.
Now back then they would not have had drop pits between the rails.
Well, this was a dirt floor,
Huh.
so probably not. I don't think they were doing much, if any, maintenance. I think this was purely locomotive storage
An
between
engine
runs.
house.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the origins of this roundhouse and turntable were purely out of necessity. One of the mill owners in town was reliant upon the passenger trains to bring workers into town, and there was no place to turn a locomotive in Franklin. You had to go to either Blackstone or Walpole to do so. And what that meant was that in the winter months, the locomotives had to run backwards into Boston. So,
Which was
with an
less than
open
ideal.
with an open cab and inclement weather, they would cancel the trains rather than run them that way. So this mill owner donated the land and the money to build this roundhouse and the turntable. And the then New York and New England Railroad, which was in the process of going bankrupt for the last time, said, "Okay, we'll build this for you, but we're not putting any of our money into it."
Hmm.
So they literally built the cheapest structure they could find. This locomotive roundhouse only had 8 windows in it,
Yep.
and it was tin clad. So you can only imagine what that must have been like working in January or July, right? No
Exactly.
ventilation, no, it had to have been a pure slice of hell.
Absolutely. Wow. So now we're back to our other building there, and now we're seeing what the other side of the loading dock.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, this was a building that handled rail traffic. So, from a model railroad layout perspective, you might not find something this big on a home layout unless it's in Mike Rose's basement. Uh, they got, 1 or 2 carloads of material in and out, and that was it.
And what did they make here again?
They made printing presses.
They made printing presses. Wow.
Yeah. And they shipped them all over the world. It was a national company. And we actually, in the museum, we actually have an example of one of their printing presses.
Amazing. Just
Mhm.
amazing. This building has a lot of uh, questions associated with it. So I think I spent a lot of time looking at and photographing this building.
Mm,
There's so much going on here, and this isn't the best photo that I took of it. A lot of it is not quite sharp enough to really fully appreciate it, but I love this ramp going up to the second floor. Love the shingles on the roof of this smaller structure with the brick chimney here.
mm,
Um, love the I guess is this slate roof up here?
That's a slate roof, yeah.
Yeah, with the railings on top and uh just the windowsills. The windowsills are killer. They just make it. You don't usually see windowsills that look really, really good. And all of these windowsills on every building just look right.
Well, there were two ways of doing this. So all this is laser cut. And when Sam and I were discussing the sills and brick arches and the windows themselves, I said, we can kind of do this the easy way, and it's going to look very two-dimensional. But the harder way is going to create a third dimension that I think is going to add a lot of realism to this. It's also going to add a hell of a lot of work to it. So
Easier
what we
painting though.
yeah, I mean it's a different process. So basically, all of the brick arches and all of the granite sills are all individual pieces. So when we drew out the openings for the windows, we accounted for the openings for the arches and the sills, and we cut the openings as one piece. And then, I added the sills and arches and then backfilled the windows into them.
Now, when this module is stored, the buildings come off of it. Is that the idea?
No, they
These are
better not.
glued in place.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Everything except the vehicles. Uh, the Jordan vehicles are glued
Yeah.
to the ground. And this is all three of these dioramas have been crated up and in storage. Uh,
Before.
we store them at our DPW warehouse,
Yeah.
and the guys that move them and put them in the warehouse and take them out of the warehouse are incredibly skilled at being very, very careful
Yep.
about moving these things.
This
It's
is
not an easy process.
this is a perfect example of what I was talking about when I was talking about how I take a picture on my layout and I look at a building and say, "Oh, that little space shouldn't be there. I need to throw some gravel or dirt along the base of it, like down in here."
Yeah, yeah.
You never get them all.
No, you just don't. You just
Now
don't.
this shot I took more at ground level because I loved the depth of the scene. Look at all of the bump outs and jigs and jogs that are in this. The pile of pallets looks just right. The sheer number of windows, the sloping smokestack at the end, which couldn't have been simple to draw, I wouldn't imagine.
Well, again, Sam to the rescue. I was going to buy a couple of Walters kits
Right.
just to get that smokestack, and he slapped me around a little bit, and he said, "No, no." He said, "I can do that," and he took a couple of pieces of oak off of the shelf in his workroom and built a jig to run them through the table saw to cut that
Yeah, it's called a
taper,
tapering jig. Yep. Yep.
and then we ran them through the laser and etched the brick pattern into them.
This guy, honest to God. You look at the individual bricks and the different little colorations and highlights. That's all hand painted, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done with a 3-inch brush. Kidding, Mike. No, yeah, they're all done individually. And again, the mills didn't use a uniform colored brick. In fact, there are two main colored bricks in this mill
Right.
complex. But if you look at it closely, probably a greater percentage than what I captured in the model would be a dark gray or almost a black.
Just from sheer dirt. Let me see if I can find a better picture. This one's still blurry to me. Better in a way. Um, Again, just the massiveness of this structure.
Well,
Uh,
you really kind of captured the feel of looking down into that alleyway.
right. That's what I was trying to get. Tough with a phone, but this is one of those deals where focus stacking would really come into play. I liked the miscellaneous details. You must have emptied the parts bins that you had left over.
Well, I've got millions and millions of detailed castings that I've collected over the years. However, it never seems to fail that, the ones I need the most of, I don't have.
What a treasure
So,
trove.
I used a lot. It's about 50-50 mix of metal castings from various kits and my own stuff over the years. And we started 3D printing barrels and pallets and drums
You guys
uh,
printed the pallets, really?
and crates. Yeah.
We need to talk.
So, I've got a million of them here. You can have what
There's,
you want.
there's a close up.
Yeah.
Your pallets look really good.
Yeah, and they're to scale.
I mean, look at this
So
wall over here on the right. I mean, look at the coloring on the lower portion of the brick. Is that just like a graffiti paint out?
no, I think I don't know exactly what the origin of that is. I suspect because I've got pictures, the prototype is, it has that kind of whitewash on below the windows,
Yeah.
on both
Maybe it was
that
a
side.
sign at one time, a painted sign for something.
I don't think it was because it's really in the kind of the interior of this mill complex.
Ah,
I think it probably had to do with creating something visible for drivers to see if they were backing in and out of this place so that they don't back into the building.
yeah,
A white background versus a dark, brick colored background.
yeah. No, that looks great. Another down the alley shot. I mean, I think, I've been in enough of these mill complexes, both from a modeling standpoint, but also at a earlier life, previous life when I did a lot of installations in mill complexes in New Bedford. We did a lot of paging systems and things like
Mhm.
that. So I'm very familiar with how these places look. They look like this.
Well, and again, all I did was just, build what was there. And this building on the right was actually this mill's, when it was a textile mill, it was the dye house.
Oh
And
yeah.
uh, it had so much. There were three buildings. The furthest one back is wood, and then the two closest are brick. But it had so much character in it. There was nothing I would, if I were to put that out as a kit, there would be nothing that I would ever do to that to add anything to it.
Right, right. There's a better picture. Okay. I was getting anxious looking at the blurriness.
Yeah, so that the building on the left there is part of that dye house, and
Okay.
the building behind it is actually part of the next mill complex. It's
The
totally different.
taller building you're talking about?
Yeah, in between that building and the building behind it, which is also part of that dye house, is a sluiceway.
Oh yeah. You can actually kind of see it right in the dead center, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've got
And
pictures showing it, the whole thing.
both companies dumped their leftover dye right into that sluiceway. There's still clay pipes that you can see in the retaining walls, where they dumped the dye in a hole in the concrete floor and it poured out this clay pipe into
Yep.
the waterway.
I
Uh,
love this little overhang here with the rusty metal sheets on the top and this little, I guess, workbench kind of a thing along the wall. Just
Yeah, so a little bit of artistic license there. I have no indication that that existed, but otherwise it was just going to be a plain brick wall. So, in a space that had a lot of open area in it because it was a fairly substantial loading and unloading area for trucks. So I wanted to build in a little extra character. The ironically, that building on the left, you see the pipe that comes out of that window
yeah, I
right
love
there.
that. Yeah.
Back in the late 80s, when I graduated from college, I was looking for work as a journalist, and my then father-in-law was a plumbing contractor. I actually installed that pipe. So his company
You're not
did,
kidding. You actually did.
yeah, yeah, the real
Really?
one, yeah, and so I wanted to add it. It probably wasn't, there probably wasn't a pipe coming out of that window in 1932, but there was in the late 80s.
There is now, absolutely. Down under the water tank here, I guess this is some sort of pump house under it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't see it, but there's an enclosed box, if you will, that insulates the piping from the
Oh no,
top of
I
the
can
water.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, down into the inside of it, and that water tank was used to provide the dye house with water to mix with the dye.
Yep. Now, were these green buildings just kind of like storage sheds?
Yeah, they were. There's four of them, and actually, I built as many as I could fit on this diorama, and still be able to get the diorama in the doors of the museum.
Yep.
Or actually more, and they were built one at a time as they were needed. As business grew, they slapped on another one,
Yep.
and so they were kind of ad hoc. They were kind of randomly placed. And they didn't follow any particular architectural design, that's for sure.
Just functional.
They were just fu purely functional. They were probably miserable places to work.
Hmm. And did you use like a thinned green paint or did you put it on and then scrape it?
Um, no, it was dry brushed.
Okay. Gotcha.
So so the process was to weather the clapboard siding with washes of India ink, and then distress the siding in places, and then just very randomly dry brush the paint on the siding. You know, it's kind of a hit or miss technique. I'm okay with how these came out. I've done others that I like better over time, but
Yeah.
uh, you notice too that the building in the center there is a different color green than the buildings on the left. It's a somewhat lighter shade of green,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I did that
Oh,
on
built at a
purpose.
different time.
Yeah, built at a different time, and yeah, we want them to be green, but we can't match the paint anymore.
The one in the back is a two-tone gray and green. Gray and green.
Exactly.
Gray
Yep.
and green.
Yep.
I like the pigeons. They're everywhere.
Well, and honest to God, I get, I want people as they come into the museum to see, um, the scope of the projects and the amount of buildings, and we can talk about the fact that they're to scale, and all that great stuff, but I want them to look closely. And to me, the pigeons are kind of the line of demarcation in terms of how closely they're looking. If they see the pigeons, I know they've seen everything else.
Right.
Pigeons are the last thing I want them to see, because I know if they get to that point, they've seen the pallets, they've seen the barrels and drums, all that sort of stuff. They've seen the guy sleeping behind the building.
There's a lot to look at here. This is basically the same view, just aimed higher and focusing more along the back. And some of it, like this building here with the peaked roof and the metal shed, we've seen from a different angle. But what
Hmm.
I found was as I walked around it, um, having the different perspectives, looking at it from a different angle, you're just seeing different things. For example, I had said to you, I said, I love the bricked up windows that you see in this center building here.
Hmm.
Which you see all the time on these buildings, but you don't see it modeled all that often, I don't think.
Yeah, and again, that this particular building is a perfect example of, adding on as business grew, and quite frankly, as business waned, that larger brick bump out that you see there was taken down
Oh, wow.
and is no longer there. And the only knowledge I have of it is on a Sanborn map, so it's just a line drawing that I interpreted it as close as I could. The smaller brick bump out beside it still exists.
Interesting.
So I concluded that the windows were probably the same. The style of doors were probably the same.
Well, absolutely. No, it's all got a family resemblance but without being identical. There are better views of this gray building or white building, whatever it is. So we'll get there. Here we go. Oh, blurry though. There's got to be a better shot of it. Hang on. Maybe not. Oh, that's aggravating. This is the
I thought,
building. This is the building you built on the acrylic as the core, right?
yeah. So this is a perfect example of not thinking like a model railroader, and Sam's value, really shown through on this particular building because we were faced with so many problems to solve in the engineering of this building. So the prototype is one of the first. It was built in 1906. It was the second building that was on this site. The first building burnt down. It was wood. They were determined to build a building that wouldn't burn down. So it was one of the first uses of cinder block for construction in the United States. Cinder block had been invented about 10 years earlier, and they really didn't know what to do with it, and they didn't know how to stabilize it so that it could be used as a building material, especially in a three-story building like this. So what they did was they put up the cinder blocks and then they cemented all around them. So they encapsulated the cinder blocks. But these are basically just, long window walls.
I was gonna
And
say this built is built almost like a curtain wall building.
yes, and there's also a lot of three-dimensional relief to this building. Uh, so what we did was this is also a chipboard structure. So it's 4 layers of chipboard, like you get in a shirt box. Um, and what Sam did was he cut the inner layer was the bottom sash. The next layer was the top sash of the windows. The next layer was the inner facade, if you will, and then the top layer was this very thin, very kind of lacy outer trim piece that kind of gives a lot of depth to the building. But I said to him, okay, we just built this 2 foot long cardboard building. How in the name of God do we keep this from turning into a pretzel, when the humidity rises?
Right.
And I said, I can't really put enough bracing back there to keep it, not only because it's cardboard, it's not going to just warp in one direction. It'll warp, in every plane imaginable.
Yeah, no, the pretzel analogy wasn't a bad one.
It'll twist. So he said, what we'll do is we'll cut an inner shell made of 1/8 inch thick acrylic, clear acrylic. And he said it'll serve as two purposes. One, it'll totally brace the building because it's going to be solid. Um,
And it'll
and,
be the
and two,
glass.
and two, it will give you the glass you need for the windows. And I thought this guy is just a genius.
Yeah, no, that's next level.
So, we engineered, he said, we've got to have some open windows. We had a postcard of this mill when it was built in 1906. Towns made postcards of the mills because they wanted to attract people to come to move to the town, and the postcard showed, these great job opportunities. And the postcard shows a lot of the windows open and people hanging out of the windows. So he designed it with open windows, which I thought was just really a neat detail.
I agree. Moving slightly to the right, which is basically all I'm doing now. You can see the sluiceway in the middle there.
Yeah. So you're looking across the Midland Division main line, which in Franklin, there were 7 tracks that crossed Union Street, which is one of the main thoroughfares in town, and made up the Midland Division main line. And then there were 3 tracks that branched off to the right of this mill complex that made up the Milford branch of the Midland Division. But what you're looking at here is the coal dock, um, which is still there to this day. And the octagonal building that you see across from it is a well enclosure. And just like the mill to the left had a water tank to supply water to the dye house, this mill used this well to pump water into the dye house to mix with the dye. And that building was also tin clad. So there's the second example in town of a
Oh,
building
okay.
clad in tin. And it collapsed about maybe 10 or 15 years ago into itself. And it turns out that it was insulated with asbestos, no kidding. And the asbestos got into the water and
Ah,
flowed out into the wetlands on the other side of the Milford Branch tracks. And the Conservation Commission in town got wind of it and it was a whole big issue with the mill owner who took her frustrations out on me every time I stepped foot on the property.
You know, the first thing I noticed in this scene were these little ducts going from the building into the chimney base.
Yeah, and if you saw, there's a photograph that's on the fascia board. We had used implemented a lot of storyboards with
Yep.
this exhibit to try to truncate a little bit of the talking that I was doing over the course of the weekend to explain this stuff. And so it had that duct work that went from the boilers to the chimney, and I thought that was really kind of cool.
Oh, absolutely. It looks very authentic. I look at this building right dead center, the reddish building. That's a
Mm.
mansard roof, right?
No, it's actually a peaked. I don't know what it's not mansard, but it is peaked on the ends and also
Oh,
peaked on
okay.
the
Okay,
sides.
so that's vertical. And maybe
Yes.
that's an optical illusion the way I'm looking at it, because I was thinking, boy, if I ever had to do a mansard roof, that would be tricky to lay out, I think.
Yeah, no, I can kind of picture how I would do it, but I think it would probably take me 5 or 6 tries before I got it right.
Right, right. Oh, Sam would just draw it, knowing him.
Yep.
Oh, there's a much better picture at last.
Yep. So you see the chimney there, and that building is the boiler house. That chimney was taken down about a year and a half ago while I was in the middle of building this, and unfortunately, the woman who owned the mill at the time, who was a third generation owner, her grandfather bought it in 1941. Didn't really want to cooperate with anything that I was doing to try to replicate this thing in miniature. She could have been a big help. Instead, she was no help. I still built the complex, but kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, and I think she just kind of went out of her way to be uh,
Difficult.
difficult. Thank you.
You think she's ever seen the module?
No, I know she hasn't. In fact, I hand delivered an invitation. She owns a fabric store within this mill, and I hand delivered an invitation to the grand opening, um, which was attended by dignitaries and all sorts of folks that were excited to see it. And she did not attend that, nor has she been in at any other time. I've been there for every opening hour we've had since it went on exhibit. So, I
No,
feel kind of
that's
bad for
her
her.
loss, but I just want to say the chimneys are killer.
Well, again,
They're
Sam.
just perfect. So those are mitered corners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's one piece. Those are all one piece.
Oh, that's not an over. You said you cut it on his table saw.
Yeah.
But now you've got the brick detail. Did he just etch it into the one piece?
Yep. So he built the jig
So
for
that's not a brick overlay.
no, he built
Well,
the
no
jig with the
wonder it
laser
looks
cutter.
perfect.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. No,
That's
he's
just
Sam is ridiculous.
that's who's that guy?
That is the best looking, second best looking bald-headed guy in the room that day. Or maybe the
I
third best looking bald-headed guy in the room that
I
day.
included that shot just to kind of give a sense of proportion to the module. I mean, look at the roof lines and everything in this. It's just amazing looking. And you're explaining something to Dave, who probably knew more about this area than I could ever hope to.
Yeah, Dave is just an encyclopedia when it comes
He's unbelievable.
to
Unbelievable.
this stuff. I felt like I was preaching to the choir because he knew where everything was.
No, I know. He probably had a lot of good questions too, knowing Dave.
Mm. Yeah, he did very much so.
And now this is just walking around, so you can see how he's got the signboard down here.
Mm.
And this kind of gives you an idea of just the length of that module. And that's no doubt a Scott hand here.
Yeah, yeah, it's 12 feet long and it's almost 5 feet at its widest point. And again, I'm uh, relegated to the amount of space I have to get it in the building.
Oh, sure. Because is it a double door going in?
It is a double door going in, and ironically, there were two tracks on that Midland Division side that I could not get in.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
just a more of a wide angle view of the whole thing. I wanted to get this angled part. I mean, it's cool how the prototype angled off this portion of the building to get some distance from the tracks.
Yeah, and the track to the right is the Milford branch, and the track to the left is the main line. Now, the Midland Division main line, it was the second busiest main line on the New Haven system.
Jeez.
And it was the only way to get from Boston to Hartford, or went directly from Boston to Hartford, and then it actually stopped in Newburgh, New York.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's interesting. One of the interesting aspects was that sometime before Pearl Harbor, shortly before Pearl Harbor, when the government started to become concerned with everything that was going on militarily around the world, they decided that they were going to move a lot of their passenger trains and then ultimately all of the troop trains off of the Shoreline Division and onto the Midland Division
Interesting. They
because they were
thought they might
concerned
be
about
vulnerable to ship attack.
submarines. There were submarines that were captured, sunk, and spotted off of the coast of, well, New London, Connecticut, for one thing, because, they got the sub base there.
Right.
So you could stand on the bridge, which I modeled on that first diagram we saw, and watch 86 passenger trains a day come through Franklin.
Wow.
Um, I'm doing
And you remember this from Penn Central days, basically, right?
well, actually no, because in 1968 when Penn Central took over this line, the line only went to Blackstone then. It terminated in Blackstone because there had been a hurricane in 58 that wiped out a bridge south of Blackstone, and they just never rebuilt it.
Mm-hmm.
And when Penn Central took over, they said to each of the towns on the along the Midland, we're going to provide passenger service for you, but there's going to be a fee attached to it. And you need to tell us if you want passenger service or not.
Yeah.
And every town said yes, except Blackstone. So Franklin became the end of the line at that point. And
Interesting.
at the end of Franklin, they tore up all of the main line track, all the way to um, um,
Is that where that rail trail is now?
it's where the rail trail is, and it's beyond just beyond Blackstone, where it connects to now the Providence and Worcester.
Gotcha.
So all that track is gone.
I'm making a second pass here. I'm
Yeah.
focusing on different things. Did you guys make the roof cap the wall cap tiles, or did you use Jimmy's?
No, those are Jimmy's.
Yeah.
And you can't, if you can't beat them, join them,
Yep.
right? There are some things that Jimmy just did that saved my life, and
Are those his corners or your corners?
no, those are our corners.
Okay.
Um, we we designed our own brick pattern.
Okay.
All of the bricks you see are individually drawn. Um, I love Jimmy's work, but what Jimmy did was he drew a 1 inch square of bricks and then did a copy and paste.
Individually drawn. You know how nuts that is, but when you like zoom in, uh, especially like over here,
Hmm.
you can see there's some little short fill in bricks and things like that. I mean, this is
Yeah,
nuts.
so that's called an American standard style of brick. So it's either 7 courses and then one soldier course or five. I forget which. I'd have to go back and
Hmm.
count.
Okay.
But that was a standard style of building up a brick wall in those days.
Amazing. This building is just beautiful, I think.
And that's one of the few buildings that because of its peak has a slate roof.
Mm-hmm. Now, are these commercial shingles you used for that?
Yeah, all of the slate shingles, the wood shingles on the two office buildings that you remarked on, those are commercial products. Actually, the wood shingles, I found some rolls of Campbell shingles. They don't make Campbell shingles anymore.
Wow.
But those two buildings originally had wood shingles on them. And I absolutely love Campbell shingles. I think that dimensionally they're perfect. And what I do with
That
them
what's
is
on the water tank?
on the water tank, but on those two, the office building at the front of the mill, near the ramp.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I probably took a picture of that. Oh,
Uh,
there's some guy. Here's the watchman. Notice
yeah.
the window propped open. It's little stuff like that, that just the curl up of some of the roofing paper there. It's just the thing is loaded with little details like this.
Well, we've had people that have come back multiple times to see this.
Yeah, I can
In
see
fact, I
why.
had a woman today that had sat in on I did a discussion at the museum a week ago in conjunction with this gentleman, Joe Landry, who's part of the presentation focused on the prototype mills and their origins. And then I jumped in and talked about the process of recreating them in miniature. And this woman happened to be there for the lecture, and she came back today with a couple of friends. She said, I had to bring people back to see this. And she was really, I said to one of the other docents at the museum, I said, she's doing my job for me and she's doing it perfect. She was paying so close attention to what I was saying. She was talking about the construction processes and she had it down.
Hmm.
So she saved me about 20 minutes of talking, which was wonderful.
And you said this roll roofing was what?
It's copy paper. So it's copy paper. I spray paint it black, cut it into scale, 4 foot wide strips, and weather it with dry brushing and chalks.
Yeah. Use any pen pastels?
Pan pastels, the goal it's more of a dry brush than chalking because the thing with the chalking wears away.
Hmm.
And the thing of it is that with a museum exhibit, some people tend to look with their hands,
Yeah, yeah.
and if they touch a roof and it's chalk, they're going to leave fingerprints.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got you.
Um, so I try to use techniques that are permanent.
Yep. Here's a non-blurry picture of that building, finally. I knew that must have been one.
So this mill is now called the Franklin Paint Company, and they make highway paint. And
Yeah, you showed us this building, right, on the way back?
yes, we went over there, and all the windows are now all blocked up. It's a it's got electricity inside it, so you
Yeah, yeah. It
don't
would have been an energy sponge otherwise, right?
need daylight. But when I started this project, myself and Joe Landry went over here. We made an appointment to sit down with the owners and meet them and discuss the project and hopefully get some buy-in and cooperation from them. And these two guys were unbelievable. They were so great. I had
The exact
one
opposite of that lady.
the opposite of the lady, yeah. I brought one of the buildings from the other mill over to show them, so they wouldn't think, that I didn't know what I was doing. And they had old photographs that they gave me. They gave me free reign to go anywhere I wanted on the property, with the caveat that if I was there, just to let someone know so they didn't bother me.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were all excited about the project. And I said to Sam, I said, I'm so grateful, for what they're allowing us to do. I'm going to build a second diorama just of this and present it to them. So we cut two of these buildings.
Are you kidding me?
I wouldn't kid you.
You built two of these buildings.
I built two of those buildings. And so we're also through in conjunction with Franklin TV, where we're shooting a documentary about the prototype buildings, and then again my process of recreating them in miniature. And we're almost done, but I said to them, would you be willing to sit down and do an interview with us on camera? They were a little reluctant, but they said yes. And they hadn't owned the company for that long, about 5 years, and
Hmm.
but they said, we'll talk about what we know, and great. So last August, I had gotten all the buildings done. I hadn't built the diorama itself for them, but the buildings were done. I emailed one of the owners and I said, hey, listen, I don't want you to think I forgot you. We do want to schedule this interview. And he wrote me back. He said, well, we sold the business. Uh, So, there are probably about 250 hours of construction that I will never get back, and
Oh my God.
that stuff went into the trash.
Two questions pop into my mind here. The cross arms on the telephone poles look
Mhm.
ridiculous. What are those?
Those are metal castings that I think I bought from Brian Bollinger.
Jeez, they look good.
Best
They're
Trades.
obviously painted right. And I noticed
Yeah,
it's a wide variety of foliage that you used, much of which I don't recognize at all as a commercial product. Talk a little bit about what you used for some of these bushes, for example.
yeah. So that's belly button lint, and I collected. No, uh, it's not my belly button lint.
Okay.
Actually, yours. Uh, so all of these products come from Scenic Express. And if you look through the Scenic Express catalog, I mean, it's just pages and pages of some of the most esoteric scenery
Yeah,
products.
well, some of it's like Martin Welberg and people like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
okay.
that's what some of this is. I used a lot of that.
I
Um,
think that's a German product, if I'm not mistaken. I've got
yeah,
some of
some of
that
it is
stuff here.
from Knock. The
Yep,
static grass is from Knock. There's a bunch of different types of static grass on it of different heights and colors.
yep.
And I just, I've been collecting it over the years and then, depleting the stock of it. Um, but pretty much when I started the first diorama, I had to go out and buy a bunch of stuff.
Mm,
And I've been working from that stuff ever since.
wow.
So there's been a scale of economy or an economy of scale, as a result of that.
Here's a non-blurry version of that building. I'm glad it made a
Yeah, so that
second pass.
oil house you see is still there. It's everything around it is so overgrown that it's very difficult to see. But again, thanks to the previous owners of this mill, they gave us some old pictures that showed it pretty clearly. And one of the things that stood out for me was the asbestos shingles they used to side it, and half of them had fallen off.
Right.
So I modeled it that way. But the picture that they gave me the exact location and style of the windows, which was essential.
Yep.
Because there's no way if you stand at trackside now and look at that building, you just can't see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Better view of the shingles. Jeez.
Mhm.
And that's actual coal from the site too.
Yeah, so what I did was I walked over there as I did with the other two dioramas. Walked over there with a 5-gallon bucket and shoveled up the dirt and picked up loose coal. In this area, there's enough loose coal to heat your home for probably a couple of months if you had a coal-fired furnace.
And
But
you just put it in a cloth bag and hit it with a hammer to break it up.
hell no, that would have been too easy. What I did was I got a, cast metal meat grinder.
No.
It's a true story, and I broke it. I broke it down. I had a 3-pound sledgehammer. I broke it down into pieces I could fit into the meat grinder, and then I
Seriously?
cranked the handle and ground it up. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like one of those you're pulling my leg stories, but I'll
No,
take your word for it.
no.
Um, the shovel looks amazing.
Yeah, so we 3D cast some wheelbarrows and some shovels, some implements of destruction, and I just tried to spread them out. There were a couple of ways they got coal into that building under that overhang is one of them.
Yeah.
Uh, So, we depicted this is actually there's a time frame, a date and a time frame that's actually associated with these dioramas. It's September 29th, 1932, and it's about 7:30 in the morning. And the reason it's timed that way
Pretty
is that
specific.
the passenger train that's in front of the station is a mixed passenger and milk train. So that would have been the first passenger train of the day. They would have picked up milk all along the route,
Gotcha.
uh, coming up to Boston and shipped it out from there.
We've seen this view, but this is more of a zoom in and mercifully everything's in focus here.
Yeah, a couple of interesting things though. You see that fire escape or the stairway.
Yeah.
That's 3D printed. But you also see that it intersects a double door. And I think we talked about the photograph where it
Yeah.
actually
I said,
shows
I'll bet it opens in.
on the prototype. Well, I think what happened was they stopped at some point. They stopped using that door. You can see
Yeah.
that there's another red door, red double door on the other side of the building.
Yeah. That's basically
Uh,
just a blocked up opening.
yeah, and I think they just switched the location of how they brought coal into the building.
So I actually kind of like this photo because a lot of the views of this area in the bottom right, none of them were in focus because I was focusing in on different areas. So these are those Campbell shingles you were talking about, right?
Yeah. And what I do with them is I pry them up after I glue them down. I pry them up with
Yep.
the number 17 X-Acto blade.
Yep.
Give them some um, give it a three-dimensional feel.
Now this building, this pump house, looks like
Mm.
a plaster casting.
It's because it is.
Okay.
So
I was
there are
gonna
a
say,
couple,
look at the depth of the brick detail here.
yeah, there are a couple of places where, I just had no photographic evidence. I knew there was a building there. I had no photographic evidence of what it was, what it looked like. But I had to put something there. That building actually came from a three-stall roundhouse kit that I produced
Yeah.
in 2005. It was the boiler house. So that's a hydrocal, four hydrocal castings. Bob Leonard actually did the design of the original building, based on a boiler house that was in Chatham, New York, on the Rutland.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Looks good. And I think I took another stab at the alley trying to get more of it in focus and failed. I really did like those alleys though. Just look right to me. And here, this was, I don't know where, oh, this is the ramp going up, and I took a down in shot because I realized there was all of this stuff going on in there that you really couldn't see. I mean, you
Yeah,
modeled stuff that was not easily seen.
so that little bump out, you're looking at the roof of it, but it's kind of an underground level kind of deal. They had some special process that they did in that space with regards to the textile industry, and I forget exactly what it was, but
This isn't the dye house.
no, it's actually part of the main mill complex, and it
Okay,
was actually an original part of the mill that was built in 1877. I've got a picture that shows that ramp in it, and now it's the loading dock, that the ramp that goes up there is all concrete,
sure,
um, because obviously the weight of today's vehicles would never hold.
right.
But back then it was just a wood planked ramp.
And every time I walked around, I found another angle to take a photo of. Like we've seen this in the background of things, but look at this view. You got your sluiceway here.
Mm,
Better view of what's under here.
yeah,
So this
yeah,
is the
yeah.
pump house. What is this?
I don't see where your cursor is.
You don't see that moving?
That's just a vent,
Huh.
just a vent in the brick wall.
No, but what I meant is, to me, the pump house would be under the water tank. So just to the right of it here, the plaster cast building.
Yeah. Oh, so what is it? What is that building?
Yeah, what's its function?
What do you want it to be?
Okay.
Yeah, the story I'm telling is it's part of the dye process.
Yeah. You 3D printed the concrete blocks or are
Those
those
are metal castings.
those are
Those
metal
are those
cast?
are those are best castings.
Jeez. So much out there. I guess when you're a kit manufacturer, you're aware of all this stuff.
Well, honestly, more and more of it comes out all the time, and now that folks are 3D printing all over the place,
Right.
you can download files. Generally, the only problem you run into is a lot of the stuff that's designed is designed for larger scales because it just doesn't scale down real well.
Right. Right.
So, our original thought was, can we, extrapolate, on this free stuff that's out there, And we ended up just drawing our own after a while.
So this is my sluiceway shot, but I have to ask you again. Are you sure this isn't a mansard roof building? Because that doesn't look like a gable.
No, it's just peaked on all sides.
Incredible. And here's my patched roof building that you saw in earlier shots.
Yeah, and those two buildings lasted for a long, long time. They were used after they took down the coal shed. Those two buildings remained for a while, and they were leased out to various companies in town. The building with the tall peak was a boarding house for a while. So
What
they
what do you call this kind of shingling, Scott?
uh,
Pattern.
sloppy. No, on the roof itself or the
No,
wall
no, the
sidewall.
sidewall.
Yeah, it's just I think it's probably an asbestos shingle, but those are diamond shaped.
Okay.
Uh, and when I took a good look at the photo of the prototype, because again, this diorama was the 3 month sprint. When I started looking at it, I thought those are diamond shaped shingles. Why?
Yeah,
Um,
it seems like a not something that you would do on a coal building, right? It's a architectural element. I like it
so
though.
I that building was built in the late 1800s, maybe early 1900s,
Yeah,
and
maybe that's just how they did things back then.
I think architecture, the way architects approached that was different than it is today.
Yeah,
Remember, labor was dirt cheap.
right, right. You just throw
Uh,
labor at it. The
yep.
and all of the weathering of this roof is all dry brushing.
There is some chalk. You'll notice some brown
Yeah,
streaks in there.
it's killer.
Local chalks, but the rest of it is dry brushing. Yeah.
And here we are back at square one, and that sign on the front is a miniature replica of the actual station sign, correct?
Yeah, and I think I told you the story, and I'll tell it again real quick. So, I grew up with a kid in my neighborhood. His name was Ron Ricci, and Ron and I have known each other since the first day of first grade, and we've been friends ever since. And we got into military modeling together at a very young age, and then it morphed into model railroading. And I stayed in the model railroading end of things. He became more of a railroad historian. He actually worked for the railroad for a while. But when we were kids in junior high school, he had made friends with the station master in the Franklin station back in the day when there was such a thing. And he was in there one day, and he was always a precocious kid. And he said to the station master, he pointed to the sign hanging from the underside of the roof of the station. Can I have that sign? And the station master looked at him and thought, this kid's out of his mind. And he said, look, he said, no, you can't have the sign. And I'm going on vacation next week for Thanksgiving. And when I get back, there better be a sign hanging there. So, there's a lot of ways to interpret that. I would probably interpret it as leave the sign alone. He
Probably
interpreted
his
it
intent.
as you can have the sign, just make sure you put one up. So all 70 pounds of him in the middle of the night carried a step ladder from his house, a mile away uptown, somehow got the sign off of the station, carried that and the ladder home, went into wood shop the next day and convinced the shop teacher into making a duplicate sign. Which as soon as it was done, he reversed the maneuver and middle of the night brought it back up to the station, hung it back up before this guy got back on vacation, and no one ever knew the difference. He has the original sign, which is one of two that existed, that as far as we can tell dates back to the 1850s when the railroad first came through Franklin. We don't know what happened to the second one, but he has the first one. So.
Will it
Uh,
end up at this place?
Yeah, he talked about donating it. So we would love to have it as a loan. It won't be a donation, it'll be a loan. But we would love to be able to display it. So he lives in Connecticut now. I went down to his house and took a picture of the sign. He brought it out, and we imported it into CAD, traced the letters because that's no font that exists anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and we made stencils on the laser cutter of the letters and duplicated in miniature here, but also made another exact replica of the sign, which is on display at the museum with a
Saw
picture
that.
of the
Yeah.
original.
So
But
the sheer amount of time, I'm gonna stop the share and
yeah,
wrap up our conversation about this. So the sheer amount of man hours that have gone into this is pretty stunning, actually, because uh, it's not the only thing you do. You're not like fully retired. You're gainfully employed, and you have a brood there and a family, and how many hours did you say you thought you had? Wasn't it like 3,000 hours or something crazy like that?
as best I can calculate, all three dioramas clock in at about 3,400 hours.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot of hours.
I probably account for 80% of that time, Sam the other 20.
Jeez. But that
Uh,
20 is vital.
oh, without it, there are no dioramas.
So he's
And
super
plans.
productive also.
I'm sorry.
He's super productive. I mean,
He's an
he's a
amazing
machine.
problem solver. He's an amazing problem solver. So many times I would go to him and say, I can't figure out how we're going to do this.
People
And
have asked me how many, I have trouble coming up with how many years I've been working on the layout because I always say, well, from what point, what iteration of the layout? I mean, I started the layout maybe 34 or so years ago. That's how old the bench work is, I guess, in the original section.
yeah,
So much has been torn out and started over. I would say the majority of what you see is probably maybe 10 or 12 years worth of work on it. But if you were to say, well, how many hours do you think that is? I haven't the faintest idea. I mean, I couldn't come up with anything resembling an accurate estimate of that because I always work in little spurts here and there, little chunks. I'm on my way to my office. Oh, let me just do this. Oh, let me glue this and clamp it and then go do some work. You know what I mean? It's so stretched out because I work from home predominantly. So um, I tell people, I probably do a lot of my modeling in the time I don't waste commuting.
sure.
But
So what I
you
realized,
drive all over the place. How did
yeah,
you fit 3,000 hours into your schedule? Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
well, uh, yeah, and I wish I could provide some justification or reconciliation of that, other than,
And you play baseball.
yeah, yeah, there are lots of things
Ridiculous.
that pull at my time.
So don't tell me I work fast.
Well, uh, yeah,
I mean, I know I
again,
built the X-ray shed top pretty fast. You were
and
there,
that was,
wasn't there, and then 24 hours
I
later
know,
it was there.
I know.
That's unusual.
One of the things that I learned very early on in this exhibit process was that one of the first questions they ask is, how many hours did it take you to build this? So when the first diorama went on exhibit and I started fielding that question, I realized that I needed to keep close track of the time so that I could provide that information.
Yeah,
But
have it based
very
somehow in reality.
there's a very prurient nature to the folks that come in. They would never, well, I don't have the patience to do something like that, but they want to know exactly how you did it.
Right.
So the numbers matter. So, being able to quantify, the hours, the board feet of lumber, the number of detail castings, the number of pigeons, the number of people, how many, board feet of,
So
um,
you resist the temptation to mess with them and just say, well, I don't sleep. I have a genetic condition that allows me not to sleep. So while you're
well,
typically sleeping, I'm working 8 hours on things like this.
well, my sense of humor.
Yeah, I do.
And
You just have to really hold yourself back.
I have to bite my tongue and sometimes I can't. And people look at me like I'm like, what? What do you mean it took you 45 minutes to build this? And then I have to apologize and and I feel like an idiot because I made them feel dumb. And uh, so we've had since this exhibit opened, we've had over 400 people come into the museum. Um, so I'm very grateful of the response, all the great comments that I've gotten. It makes it worthwhile to do. And I'm also glad that Sam is also hearing some of this feedback too, because he kind of toils in anonymity in this.
Oh, so he never comes to the museum?
I literally um, coaxed him. You talk about you leaving your house.
Right,
He's the same way.
right.
He doesn't want to go out, and
He's doing stuff.
I coaxed him and I said, "Listen, we've got this opening ceremony. Our state rep is speaking. He's gonna say nice things about you, and you really need to come and bask in some of this stuff that you've deserved." So he did, and I invited his parents, who otherwise they knew he was involved in this, and I've known his parents for years and years, and they're really nice people, but he would not have invited them. And his mother said to me, I'm so glad you invited me because, I really now get a sense of what he contributed to this and
Right,
how
right.
essential that was. So
He's on the podcast group too. He chimes in every once in a while.
yeah, he's very, yeah, again, he's not in the hobby, but he's very appreciative of the skill level required.
Right.
He's obviously very much a craftsman in everything he does, and he does so many different things. He started off being my car mechanic.
Just
He
one of
owned
those
his own car
can-do type.
repair place, and then we were talking about computers one day, back in the days of, 286s, and he started building computers for me. And, the next 10 computers I owned were all built by him.
Do you know how many computers I've built?
Well, but, to
I
transfer,
think I built over 300 PCs back in
I'm
the days
sure,
when that made sense.
I'm sure. Um, and so basically he's just a guy that can figure out how to do anything. Um, and I'm just so appreciative of that.
Yep. Well, listen, thank you for prodding me to do a podcast. Sometimes I need some prodding. And I think the site visits were probably a good idea. Been to
Yeah, hopefully I can get down there and operate.
Yeah,
So,
well, we ended up I was supposed to operate actually today, but a couple of the guys got sick and I said, "You know what? Let's wait till at least a couple of weeks after Springfield. Let anything they're going to catch take hold."
yep, you got it.
But so, there'll be something going on probably towards mid February, let's say. So I'll certainly keep you on the spare board.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. Well, there's another crew call wrapped up here. Thanks for listening and watching. This will go up to the podcast website and YouTube. Hopefully tonight. So I guess I better get going. Till next time. Have a good night.